should mean starting from the bottom in League One. I feel this would build a much stronger, more sustainable club than what the RFL is suggesting. Starting in the Championship on -12 is setting a new club up to fail. It's likely to cost them £1 million from their own pocket for this season, with the knowledge that the best they can hope for is to avoid relegation.
Alan Walker got in touch. He said, although it's late before the 2017 season, I think the RFL could have offered the Championship place to bids. They could have set criteria to avoid being too soft, but at least it'd make it more transparent and stop a lot of whingers on about giving Bulls a free ride. It looks like the RFL didn't want to think about it and wanted to close the book as soon as. I'm sure another club could have been ready to take their place. If not, then at least it would be clear. Although financially they have a clean sheet, which is not good for creditors, they don't have a playing clean sheet. What's more, of course, it's not guaranteed that there'll be a new Bradford team in place in time. Who is going to bankroll 2017? It's not possible to start up a club out of nothing. If backers appear out of nowhere, it'll look like they were just waiting to have the debts cleared. That'd leave a nasty taste in the mouth. And they could be without enough good players or backup staff. So with -12 points, there's a real risk that a new club could start the year but not finish it. That'd be a real disaster, and that's why it'd be better if Bulls 2 started as a new club at the bottom. Their summer bash place could have been offered to a French side, or Toronto, or Jamaica, or other countries. But that's got time to sort. Again, ask for bids from anyone, open to all. I wouldn't, but you could also include union teams, a wild card.
He goes on to say,
RFL should either build up Odsal into a top-class stadium HQ or sell it off and put the money into the long-term development of the game. RL doesn't have many stadia. This could be one less.
Okay, and Darren Alfie Garner got in touch. He said they should have gone to slaughter in 2011. Like a Spanish matador, they played with it until it could stand no longer. Then a Bulls equals hamburger emoticon. In his opinion, they should have let it fail, inverted commas.
Bob Phillips, he said, I was new to Rugby League in 2011 and one of the few hundred that bought a Rhinos Bulls ticket despite never planning to go. The tradition, which I had learned of, the explosive and inventive Bull side being dispatched by bad accounting had felt so wrong, and so I contributed, hoping that a sensible steer could settle them out. 6 years on, and it's not happened.
And Paul Michael Craig, the Thunder from Down Under, said, my view is it's all fine and good that a new co is set up, but like Glasgow Rangers in football, they should start at the bottom. I'm sure one of the relegated clubs from last year could handle the step up from League One, or there's also Toronto.
David Cantrell, he gets in touch. He says it's a tough call. Without them, all the other clubs lose match day revenue. What are they going to do? Promote someone and promote someone else into League One to replace whoever goes up? So that's sort of a different slant on the League One conversation. It wasn't a direct reply to Paul.
It was a direct reply to us?
Yeah.
Asking us what he thought?
Yeah.
There you go. Gary Ormiston got in touch. He's a big Wigan fan. He says, I hope I'm not too harsh on the Bulls, but here goes. It sends out the message that if you run your club into the ground, get liquidated, and come back as a new club debt-free, and in 2018 you can be fighting for Super League. They need relegating to send out a strong message. Where are the loyal fans now? Rats and ships spring to mind. Bradford are no longer a force and a draw in the game. Their time has been and gone. Look at the attendances of the season they went down. Bullmania has gone. Had the 16,000 stuck by them, I don't think they would be in this mess. You could say we, brackets Wigan, started this off with the Great Escape. To be fair, the Bulls have not really recovered from that famous night.
That was the greatest comeback in playoff history night when Pat Richards finished off a fine Mark Coldwood display.
Oh yes, it's
do you remember?
It's rare.
2008.
It's rare.
2007, wasn't it?
It's rare for Wigan fans of any calibre to neglect to mention that when talking about the Bulls.
Well, you only played
small beer compared to the things we've been through.
You didn't win another playoff game after that point.
What? Who got in touch next, Mark?
Wakey White said, really feel for the fans. It could easily have been Wakey had the £1 million game gone the other way. Hope they get a new owner and sort it out soon. I'm quite interested to see what they reform ask. Bulls is an iconic name and the game community in the gaming community, but they sold the naming rights and the logo.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. From a long way away from down in deepest, darkest Tasmania, Benny Storer gets in touch and says, given the small size of our sport, there needs to be a club in Bradford, a new Bradford FC, and it should start in League One.
Dibs, who I believe is a Hull FC fan, said, unfair to the other clubs who are run properly, and Bradford, who will get relegated starting on minus 12 points. Why delay the inevitable? Get them in League One so they start from scratch like any other newly formed club, like Toronto. Just because Bradford were the club of Super League years ago, it shouldn't mean they should get special treatment. If it was Wakefield, Widnes or any other club of a similar standing, there'd be no such deal, I'm sure of it.
James Warren got in touch. He said, have a look into the history of my football team, Weymouth FC. Plenty of similarities. People promising massive financial investment when all they were after was some land. We had the 2012 Olympic sailing there, but as soon as it was clear that there was no time left to build a hotel on our ground, the money was gone. We play at the 7th tier of English football now and are only just clear of the CVA that took half our income per month to clear. As a footnote, that still meant creditors only got 20 pence per pound the club owed them. The odd thing is that we could have folded and reformed without the financial constraints and probably still been at the same level.
And we'll finish with an email from Mark Butler. He said, hello, I thought I'd write in with a potential idea for the future of Bradford Bulls, although maybe one for the medium to long-term future rather than for this next season. I'm a season ticket holder at Wrexham FC and we have been owned by a supporters trust for over 5 years, a period which has seen a stabilised financial position and gradual reclaiming of assets we previously lost to private owners. Although the club hasn't yet been able to reclaim the league position it also lost under private owners, I suspect the Bulls are in a similar position as we were pre-takeover, with a meltdown having been years in the making and many a white night having turned out to be not to be anything of the sort. When looking at comparisons with the two situations, I can actually see advantages where the Bulls are. While liquidation isn't recommended, it could provide a clean slate. Wrexham took on the club as a going concern, and this meant servicing a debt and managing projected losses, all while trying to reclaim control of its ground and remain competitive on the field. One would also expect the Bulls to have an easier time of imposing the status of its club onto the league it plays in without too many other bankroll clubs to flatten it, providing it was managed sustainably, hopefully including a youth setup, an area we have rather got it wrong with at Wrexham. One area which might hold the Bulls back with this is getting a bid organised. To create sustainable and compelling fan organisation won't be created overnight, whereas at Wrexham the supporters trust had existed for a decade before owning the club, hence me seeing this as something for the future rather than right now. Even then, fan expectation could prevent this ever taking off, as fan-run clubs do tend to have to present a vision of measure rather than ambition at times. However, given the Bulls' recent history, surely this is something which could appeal. I noticed that the administrators call for an end to the old model of one man writing cheques to keep clubs going, and I can only agree. A business approach these days seems to be all about gambling, and gambles often go wrong. An approach where those running the show have only the club's interests at heart and are not able to spend money that isn't there could do a lot for a number of clubs. Maybe this is the place. I'm not sure if this input is where you are looking to take the show, but it's something I feel could stabilise a lot of clubs. I think I'm right in saying Hunslet are a fan-owned already. Either way, I hope the situation is swiftly resolved and consigned to the past. I have fond memories of the 2005 Grand Final and 2 gay Bradford fans singing, "We'll be running around Headingley with us Willies hanging out," while surrounded by soon-to-be-defeated Leeds fans. Hopefully they'll get the glory again. Hopefully minus the penis exposure.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. That was tremendous, and a lot of interesting ideas in there. I find it quite interesting that the last 2 people that got in touch were talking about non-league football and fan ownership and kind of drawing parallels there. And I think that, from my point of view, that starting again at amateur level, and
Rochdale are owned by a supporters trust.
I believe so, yeah.
Aren't they?
Yeah. So yeah, there we go.
And they've shown some stability and strength in the last few years. There's been obviously changing divisions, but being that yo-yo club, but almost accepting that yo-yo club status to an extent has maybe solidified things there.
Yeah. I mean, from my point of view, and obviously we've kind of put off talking about it, but let's talk about the 12-point deduction and starting in the Championship. I don't know many Bradford fans who actually fully, wholeheartedly support this decision. I think the RFL are in a difficult position in terms of managing not just the expectations of whatever happens in Bradford and administering a new Bradford Rugby League club, but also the general administration of rugby league in general. And I think what they've tried to do is keep things as stable as possible by maintaining the Bulls' position in the Championship, albeit with a points deduction. Personally, that's not what I would have liked to have seen, and it leaves a sour taste in my mouth as a Bulls fan to see that happening for a number of reasons. First of all, it does give the message that it smacks of favouritism, or it smacks to some people who would like to interpret it as the RFL taking care of the Bulls. I think they would do it for any number of teams. Of course, people's patience has run thin with Bradford Bulls because this is the third time around that it's happened now. Not the fans' responsibility by any stretch of the imagination, and these are the people that are the ones that are left feeling embarrassed by this situation. But what I would have liked to have seen is if they reform, if there's a new Bradford side, they start in League One and promote someone of the ilk of Whitehaven, or let them make a decision re-Toronto and put them into the Championship. And it's not beyond the wit of the RFL to protect a club coming into a new division from just being hammered and immediately relegated. Catalan Dragons had some protection from relegation when they first entered Super League.
That would garner similar criticism of favouritism.
But you're never going to please everybody with this decision.
Those criticisms will come out there whether there is actual favouritism or not. Yeah. I actually think there's one sort of harsh angle of looking at it for me that you won't like. But also there's a sensible angle of looking at it that I think they've actually done it all for the reasons they've stated, for the fact that we are so close to the season. Whether it's Toronto, will have had plans in place already to sort their schedule out. It's a difficult measure sorting their schedule out, and not only their schedule, but the poorer clubs that have already planned when their trips to Toronto need to be.
Yeah.
Right? Those clubs, that is a massive disadvantage to them and a massive cost that the RFL would have to cover because of a decision that's not really of their making as such.
Yeah.
And I also think people would massively criticise that as favouritism towards Toronto, because we always find a way to criticise the RFL.
Yeah.
Workington were not in a position to be a Championship club in 2016, so let's forget about that idea.
Yeah.
They had 14 players in games. That's just not, Whitehaven slightly better footing than Workington, but whether they would have really wanted to take on the burden of having to recreate a squad almost, and because they've had losses,
of course.
And they'd have to change things around. And the only other realistic option then would be Barrow. Now, Barrow would maybe, for me, be the most realistic option. They'd be in the same position, almost, that they would have been had they have beaten Toulouse last year.
Yeah.
I do think it comes a little late in the day for them to organise it. And whilst we're talking about long trips, Barrow have to make long trips. They have to plan these things in advance. The nastier side of it that sort of sprung to my mind a little bit is, and what Alan was talking about the brand of the Bulls being so negative and poisonous now.
Yeah.
I almost think that has filtered out to the attitude, and you talk about the attitude. We haven't seen it a lot in what we've had, but we haven't had a lot of responses from other Championship fans. But other Championship fans would love the idea of giving the Bulls a right good smacking this year, and whatever Bradford Rugby League club there is, serving a penance for what they've done and the way they've acted, whilst other clubs have tried to act more properly.
Yeah.
And Bradford have continued to put themselves in the mire.
And it's all well and good saying that, though, but the people who've done that repeatedly move on and disappear. So whilst the organisation historically has put itself in the mire, those aren't the people that you're punishing. The people that you're punishing are the fans. I agree completely.
I agree with what you're saying, but there needs to be a common ground in there. That's not where that's met, is it? You see, so it's almost like having them go through that year.
Yeah.
The Bulls go through that year earns the club more respect, earns the fans more respect back for in